For all those who appreciate the work that we're doing here on Standing for Truth, please hit that subscribe button because we are just getting started. All right, looks like we are live here tonight on Standing for Truth. Guys, I know you're as excited as I am. We've got Derrick Barnes here, as well as Matt Slick. Both of these gentlemen are no stranger to debates. We got a couple of seasoned debaters. It's going to be a lot of fun. We're debating specifically the topic of Christian morality versus secular morality. And it's going to be a lot of fun. Matt Slick's been here before. Derrick's been here before as well. Why don't we kind of break the ice just for anybody new to the channel? Derrick, Matt, you guys are on mute, but why don't we just a quick introduction, a little bit about yourselves, maybe what you're doing over at your ministry or your channel, what people can expect to find if they check you out, for example. Why don't we start with Matt? Matt, good to be here. I appreciate you giving us your time for this exciting debate.
All right, no problem. Thanks for having me on. For those who don't know, I'm Matt Slick, my real name, not some radio name or anonymous thing, but born with it, learned to run as a kid. Okay, I started CARM.org, Christian Apologetics Research Ministry, 25 years ago. It's had 145 million visitors as of March. And I've been doing radio for 16 years, do debates, teach, write books, and annoy my wife, with the latter of which I'm quite good at. That's who I am.
I think I've probably mastered that one as well.
Trust me, I'm better. Oh, I'm better. I got a lot more years on you. I perfected it. And my wife, this area of her forehead is really smooth from rubbing it all the time.
Right. So there is some positives and benefits to your wife being constantly annoyed by us. That's good.
That's right.
Thanks for the introduction. And we'll hand it over to Derrick. Derrick, thanks for being with us again. It's always a pleasure, and you always make for a good debate. So, Derrick, thanks again.
Happy to be here. I certainly don't have as much experience as my opponent here, But yeah, I'm essentially some random guy on YouTube. But I am a master's student learning science education, and I hope to do a good job. That's it. Real short, right to the point.
Awesome. I'm sure it's going to be one to remember. We've already got a nice chat going. Therefore, guys, please, we're going to be having. I'll go over the format real quick. We're going to be starting off with 10-minute opening statements. We're going to be starting with Derrick, and then we're going to follow that up with an open dialogue for about 50 minutes or so. We're going to keep the debate about an hour and a half. We're going to end it with some questions from the audience. Okay, guys. So please. Tag me with your questions at Standing for Truth. That way I don't miss them. Typically we have some pretty lively chats and we'll get to as many as we can. So enough for me, you guys here to see the debaters, Derrick and Matt. So I'm going to hand it over to Derrick. You have 10 minutes. Take as much time as you need. Within that 10 minutes, whatever you don't take, we'll just throw into the dialogue portion. And go ahead. The floor is yours, my good man.
Sounds good. So the question of morality has been debated for millennia. Philosophers had it for thousands of years, really, and a consensus still hasn't been reached. Of course, for the longest time, everyone thought that science had to stay out of the debate because you couldn't get an ought from an is. But I would imagine that we're probably approaching the question wrong, and that's the reason why we never was able to get a handle on it. Historically, we know that when it comes to issues of philosophy, while philosophers themselves provide great insight, when it comes to understanding reality, they don't have the best track record. Science does have a good track record. They don't know everything in reality. Don't get me wrong. But here we are live talking to each other across thousands of miles and broadcasting it out to the world. I have a smartphone here that's more powerful than the most powerful computer in a rocket we launched to the moon. All right. Philosophers didn't do this for us. Scientists did. All right. So when it comes to the question, or any question really, while I can listen to what philosophers have to say, I'm going to defer to what contemporary scientists are saying. And I say contemporary because we have to look at it along these lines. Was the people who wrote the Bible as literate about the nature of reality as contemporary scientists and engineers are today? They just didn't know the world the way we know the world. So whatever opinions that they have is not going to be informed by what we have now. And this is the same not only for the people who wrote the Bible, this is the same for the people who thought about the Bible hundreds of years ago. So this is true for Anselm, St. Thomas Aquinas. These people are very brilliant, don't get me wrong, but they just don't know the world the way we know the world. So they couldn't even formulate arguments using the same knowledge and information that we have now. I'm pretty sure we'll get into that in the debate, but I did want to share screens with you guys. And I do want to just distinguish the two worldviews that we're operating from. I'll put down what I imagine Matt's worldview to be. I'm pretty sure he'll correct me if I am wrong. So here, I'm just going to share screens right quick. Can you guys see me?
Yes, we're good to go. It just popped up right now.
All right, good.
And
all right,
there we go.
All right, secular versus Christian morality. Now, this is the topic of the debate. Before we get started, I do want to make a distinction. There is no one secular morality. So there could be tons of different secular moralities. The secular morality I'm operating off of is just a naturalistic morality. In my frame, or in my worldview, the way we speak about objective reality, or not objective reality, objective morals is different. We're looking at most people, when they talk about objective morals, they're talking about behaviors or prescriptions. You could say that such and such behavior is objectively immoral. I don't look at it that way. I see it more along the lines of what is morality referring to? Is it something objective about the universe, more or less, or not even a universe, but more or less within social groups? So social groups, especially, we are social animals. So how does this objective thing, this feeling that we have, this intuitive thing that we have about what we feel to be right or wrong. What is that objectively? What is that? And so that's my approach. So of course, Christian morality is not the only objective or let's just get into the worldviews. Okay, you have the Christian worldview. You tell me if I'm wrong, Matt. And I juxtapose that with the naturalistic worldview because that's the worldview that I'm going to approach. That's what I'm going to use to approach the topic. All right. So from the Christian's perspective, God exists necessarily. God is perfect. That means God is necessarily perfectly good. If God exists, his existence is an objective fact of reality. And that means nature, which is good, is also an objective fact. And God, therefore, grounds moral goodness as both the source and its ideal. Okay. So while this sounds good, you got to keep in mind, these are all concepts here. And none of these things have been verified scientifically or anything like that. In fact, it seems to contradict the things that we're actually discovering about the nature of reality. The same discoveries that allow us to create smartphones and computers and everything else like that. So from the naturalistic worldview, any supernatural agents exist. And that includes God, souls, ghost spirits. Could they exist? It's possible. But there's no affirmative evidence that any of these entities do. All right. The only thing that exists objectively that we can tell in nature are fields of energy and their associated particles and the objects and energies made up of those constituent parts. Morality is an abstract concept. It's a word that we invented to try to describe something that we feel, that we have an intuition about. So the concept of morality are inventions of physical human brains used primarily to judge the behaviors of others. And this is something that we need to do in order to function as a social species. All right. If we continue on with the Christian worldview, you see that God, the belief is that God created the universe and the world and populated with like, albeit weaker versions of himself, and he is sovereign over his created beings. That means, for the most part, God can do whatever he wants. And we are not in a position to judge the actions of God. So we can't really say if he says drowns half the world or in the entire world, that he did anything evil. All right. Because he is, of course, the source and the ideal. He is sovereign. That means whatever he says is good. And this is called deontology. All right. His created beings, like himself, are imbibed with a soul or spirit, consciousness, and free will. And those beings, humans, can freely choose to behave godlike or contrary to it. Okay. Did God create the universe? Maybe. We don't know. The ultimate source of the cosmos is unknown. What we do know is that our observable universe, let us call that our Hubble bubble, emerged out of the Big Bang approximately 13.8 billion years ago. Earth came into existence via natural forces approximately 4.6 billion years ago. And anatomically modern humans emerged on the plains of Africa and spread throughout the rest of the world. But originally, the first anatomically modern person, approximately 200,000 years ago, via a process of evolution. Now, we have no evidence of spirits. The universe appears to be deterministic. And this is what allows things like smartphones and computers and everything else like that to exist. And that means there's no free will. And consciousness is a concept, a word that humans invented that describes the physical processes and the subjective experiences that take place in the physical brains of organisms. Okay, if we continue on with the Christian worldview, God revealed his moral prescription to humanity in scripture found in the Bible via his prophets and via his son, the human avatar of one of his triune natures. And God so loved the world that he sacrificed his only begotten son, that should we believe in him, we will be granted salvation and everlasting life. All right. From the naturalistic perspective, when we actually look critically, at the Bible, we see that it is an unreliable source of knowledge that is contradicted by scientifically verified human discovery. The prophecies found in the Bible are either vague, post-dictions, or simply did not and will not come true. And while some of the more prescriptions found in the Bible appear to be wise, and they should be because it is a work of human writers, others are either atrocious or impractical in amount of error, such as God sacrifices his son for someone else. That's kind of not only atrocious, but it's morally bankrupt insofar as you're allowing the suffering of one to atone for the sins of others. And of course, we would not operate that way in any type of judicial system. All right. And moreover, we have no verifiable evidence for the existence of any heavenly realm or any type of life after death. All right. So the words get a little smaller. So I don't know how quickly I'm running out of time, but the implications of the Christian worldview is that morality is objective, and people do like the idea of having objective morality. That's why you have a lot of atheists running around talking about, "Hey, yeah, I'm a moralist. I'm a moralist." Not really. But God gave humans moral prescriptions and written His moral law in their hearts. All right. Morality exists in a space occupied by the choices of free beings, as manifested by their thoughts and actions. And human thoughts and actions are either good or bad. And statements such as lying, killing, stealing, and coveting another's wife is evil and sinful. That's an objective fact. To say that that's evil or sinful is an objective fact from the Christian worldview. And we, of course, can judge other people's actions and hold them responsible for their choices and reward or punish them for it accordingly. And God can see their thoughts. He is the ultimate arbiter of divine justice. All right. From the perspective of naturalism, morality is a concept that describes naturally evolved human instincts juxtaposed with the rationalizations of big brain human mammals, a social species. This is what we know about human nature. Morality exists conceptually at the level of the group, not as the individual. Human identity, absolutely. Human identity cannot be separated from their physical bodies, which are subject to physical determinism. All notions of choice is an illusion. All humans consider themselves to be fundamentally good and have what they consider to be good reasons for thinking and acting as they do, at least at the time of their thinking and acting it. That's a claim that can be verified or disconfirmed. As a group, historically, humans collectively decide what actions the individual took to be good or bad based on the effect these behaviors had on the cohesion of the in group. I don't think I'm going to get to all of this. If you want to breeze through this, maybe at some other point in the lecture, we can get to the auxiliary beliefs that's associated with these here. But I'll yield the floor for right now because I don't want to overextend my time.
Awesome. I appreciate that, Derek. Just on time, which is a couple seconds to spare. Matt, I did post the URL for the debate in the side chat in case you were looking for it. And some people in the chat that just got here, they were asking how do they get their questions out. Just tag me at Standing for Truth. That way I'll see it. We'll get to as many questions as we can after the dialogue portion. So that was a 10-minute opening from Derek. We are now going to hand it over to Matt Slick for his 10-minute opening statement. Matt, whenever you're ready, the floor is yours.
Okay, I'll be back in a couple hours. I got a couple things to do. He said whenever. Okay, hold on a sec. All right, get my timer going, okay? My wife has to put up with this too. She's pretty, just not good, poor woman. All right.
Hey, keep things light.
Yeah, that's right. Okay, hold on. There we go. Okay, starting. All right. Well, thank you. The information was interesting, but I think it's logically problematic. I'm going to point out a few things that I don't think are helpful to your position, Derek. So you brought up the is-ought problem. That's good. We can discuss that later. And he said hopefully I'm representing you accurately, that says we've got to get morals using the scientific method. I think you said that, but maybe not. I'm trying to represent you accurately. If you did say that, that's full of problems, You can't demonstrate through repeatability, experimentation, through the scientific method, or either methodological naturalism or anything, what a morally right thing to do that has a universal quality. The Bible writers didn't understand the world as we do today. That's irrelevant to whether morals are true, because you see, is it always wrong to rape? Is it always wrong to murder? Things like that doesn't depend upon what time it is, what day it is, what country you're in. These deal with the issues of universals. But we can get into that maybe later. It says science is provisional, is always learning, so you can't really use science as the absolute determiner of moral truths, particularly since science is restricted to learning about the physical realm, repeatability and experimentation, where morality is not like that. To say we're social animals is another way of saying we're subjective social animals. We're subjective. We don't have any absolute rights or wrongs. We disagree about all kinds of things. We agree, don't agree. And to say that one person has an intuitive sense of right and wrong is really kind of a useless statement, because others might have an intuitive sense that something else is right or wrong. Intuition is subjectivism, and subjectivism doesn't provide any basis for universal morals. To say there's no affirmative evidence that there's a supernatural that exists, you can't make that statement stick, because to say there is no affirmative evidence, or no evidence, I think you said, that you have to be able to determine that all evidence exists that you've looked at. And to say there is no evidence, what you could say is the evidence that I've looked at so far has not convinced me that the supernatural exists. Now, I've looked at evidence and I'm convinced that supernatural does exist. And there's some other things we could talk about that. The only things that exist objectively in nature are fields of energy that are associated particles. You don't know that. You don't know all things to be able to say that they are the only things that exist. Do thoughts exist? Does my love for my wife exist, etc.? Science doesn't determine those, and science can't measure those. You said the concepts of morality are interventions of physical human brain is used primarily to judge the behaviors of other humans. And this is a problem, because you said later, human identity cannot be separated from the physical bodies. This was in your PowerPoint presentation, which I copied. Human identity cannot be separated from the physical bodies, which are subject to physical determinism. All notions of choice is an illusion. Well, that means then that your arguments here are not logical. You can't trust them to be logical. It's just chemical necessity in the brain. It's just physical determinism. Physical determinism in a restrictive sense of a naturalistic world you cannot verify that your statements are true, your logic is true, your interpretation of evidence is true. It's just necessary chemical reactions in your brain. And what I'd like to do when I'm talking to atheists about this, I end up saying to them, your brain made you say that. If it's just chemical reactions without any real issue of choice, then you can't choose what you believe, you can't choose what you do, and you really aren't responsible for anything that you say, do, think at all, because it's just your chemical reactions in your brain determining what you're going to do. And we have a saying in computer programming, GIGO, garbage in, garbage out. What goes in is what comes out. And if you're going to say that the physical brain is naturalistic, and as I looked at your notes, the physical bodies which are subject to physical determinism, and all notions of choice are an illusion. Well, if that's the case, then you have no right to say that anything is right or is wrong, or you have no right to even say that all notions of choice are an illusion, because that statement itself, you can't know if it's an illusion or not, because to say that all choices are an illusion, you don't know if you made the choice out of truth, out of determinism, or what. So basically what you've done inadvertently is shot yourself in the foot. You've refuted your own method of argumentation, the very basis of your argumentation. If you were to argue in any way, shape, or form right now, from here on out, based on this issue, then you're saying then that your chemical reactions in your brain are producing responses, but it does not necessitate that any chemical reactions in your brain without your free will, because all notions of choice are an illusion, you said, then you don't know if anything you're saying is true or not. It's just necessary chemical reactions. If that's the case, you don't know if anything you're saying in the argument here is true, or logic is true, or anything is true. And it's a problem. And you can't know if evolution is true. You can't know if the Big Bang occurred 13.8 million years ago. You can't say that the Earth is 4.6 billion years old. You can't say evolution is true. And it has lots of problems. Also, evolution does. To say there are no spirits in the universe, you can't say that because you don't know all areas of the universe. You don't know what the universe consists of. You have not been in all places of the universe. You have not looked at all evidence in the universe, so you can't say that. You can say, however, I'm not convinced by any of the evidence thus presented. But to say there are no spirits in the universe doesn't work, and no free will. And consciousness is a concept that describes the physical processes in the subjective experiences that take place in the physical brain of an organism. Again, that statement right there means that you cannot trust your own argumentation. And if you can't trust your own argumentation, then that means your argumentation is self-refuting. So what you're offering is a self-refuting system of thought. You're saying there's no free will, choice is an illusion, Consciousness is a concept that describes the physical processes in the subjective experiences that take place in the physical brain of an organism. You would have to abandon your own worldview in order to argue. In order to make a point, you would have to say, well, I'm not going to adapt, and I'm going to abandon the idea of physicalism, naturalism, the idea we don't have any free will, that there is no choice, that it's all an illusion, just mechanistically necessitated through physical brain operations of a physical brain in an organism that's limited to the physical laws of chemistry, motion, matter, etc. Then all you're saying is that everything you're saying is just chemical reactions. And one chemical state that leaves another chemical state in the brain doesn't produce, or you can't know if it does produce proper logical inference. And the only way to determine that would be to leave that worldview. Because if you operate inside the worldview of just necessary chemical reactions, you can't know if those chemical reactions are true. You have to leave it, go outside, find transcendental truths that then you can use this system to be judged by this system out here. It's a transcendental system, but you can't have transcendentals in a purely mechanistic place where you don't have cohesion inside of free will or choice. Furthermore, you don't have any ultimate standard by which you can judge what is moral, what is not moral, what is right, what is not right, what is good, what is bad, any moral statements. If you don't have an objective standard that is the terminus, that is the ultimate standard by which you get to, there's no way for you to say that something is right or is wrong. You can go to the Bible, you can quote something, you can say you don't like it, you can call it an atrocity, as you did, the atrocities of the Bible and things like that, if I got that correct, but it would be meaningless. An atrocity would just be your definition of I don't like it, not of anything like this is a universally true statement. And that's why we know that that particular instance and that particular time, so many thousands of years ago in a different continent, different culture, is actually objectively wrong. To call it an atrocity is to say it's a moral judgment of condemnation upon that. And to do that, you'd have to have a universal standard by which you can make that judgment. If you don't have a universal standard by which you can make the judgment, then atrocities are necessarily, in your opinion, just things you don't like. Doesn't mean they're good, doesn't mean they're bad, doesn't mean that they're right or wrong. It just means you don't like them. And then you label atrocities and you hold the God of the Bible responsible for what you call, what you would label, as an atrocity with its pejorative connotation attached to it. You talk about prophecies and things like that, but that's another issue. And you said morality is a concept that describes natural evolved human instincts juxtaposed with the rationalizations of big brain human mammals, a social species. Well, I got less than a minute now. You don't know if that's true. Your brain just made you say that, and there's no way to determine that. And we could discuss evolution sometimes and some of its problems, but human instincts are subjective. They're not absolute. They're not universal. And so therefore, you don't have any universal moral absolute by which you can make any judgments of right or wrong. And since you deny free will, if I got you correct, then you don't know if what you're saying, thinking, feeling is right or wrong in any way, shape, or form. And so you ultimately refute yourself, and the basis of your argumentation is just gone down the drain. All right, done.
Awesome. Okay, thank you there, Matt. Gentlemen, that concludes the opening statements. Great opening statements from the both of you. We're now moving into the open discussion portion of this debate. The goal, as always, is to keep it free-flowing and organic, which means I'll try and stay out of it as much as possible unless moderation's absolutely needed. There goes the timer. So what we can do, since Matt just ended his opening statement, we can pass it over to Derek. If you want to kick off the open discussion with a couple points, maybe a question, go ahead, gentlemen. Floor is yours.
Okay. Right quick, if I could just ask you a question. Can you contextualize your worldview, and can you define or describe what you mean by objective morality, and what are some of the examples, what are some of the statements that you can say based on that understanding of objective morality?
I'm not sure. Yes, that's quite a complex question. The contextualized, I'm not sure I understood what you mean by that, but can I give an objective moral as an example? Yes. Sure. Murder is wrong, out of Exodus 20, verses 1 through 17, 10 Commandments.
Okay, so murder is wrong because it says in the Bible murder is wrong?
Because God has revealed it out of his own character and essence as is recorded in the Word of God.
And how do we know that God revealed that what that Bible is saying is actually the word of God?
Well, if you want, we can have a Bible study sometime, and I can work through those particulars about you and discuss the issues of inspiration, reliability of scriptures. I can show you patterns in the scripture that cannot be explained just by haphazard chance. I can show you prophecies, which I know you say aren't really prophecies, but I can show you stuff you don't know about. I assume I can. I mean, I don't think you know all the prophecies. I have been studying a very long time about this. I can show you things and give you good evidence to suggest that the Bible is the Word of God. In a particular sense, Jesus Christ, God in flesh, who died on the cross, rose from the dead 3 days later, recorded by the eyewitnesses. That's fantastic evidence right there.
Do you believe that the eyewitness testimony of people who lived thousands of years ago is a reliable source of evidence?
Yes. Yeah, in the Bible, yeah. In the New Testament, sure.
Okay. Now, if contemporary scientists in this day and age who knows more about reality than they did back then say that such a thing is impossible, you would still trust the eyewitness testimony of people who lived thousands of years ago?
What would justify
Actually, real quick,
them?
before you answer that, Matt, I'm sorry to interrupt. Derek, I'm just getting some word in the chat that there's just some slight crackling coming out of your audio, and I just want to make sure that your questions and your arguments are coming out clear. It almost looks like your webcam is a little fuzzy too, so maybe I guess whatever you can do to possibly fix that, reduce the resolution, or
let me see.
It was just some slight crackling.
Because I got two Wi-Fi. Well, this looks like it's the better connection here. Is my audio? You still don't hear me well?
No, it sounds great now. So yeah, so whatever you did, you fixed it. I think your audio evolved, so we're good.
Okay, all right, good.
No, you sound great now. Whatever you did, fixed it. Go ahead, gentlemen. I apologize.
All right, so basically the resurrection in light of present-day science. First of all, you have no free will by which you can verify that the question is valid. It's just chemical reactions in your brain. That's something you've not dealt with yet. It refutes your whole or undermines your whole logical argumentation. And just because someone today says that the resurrection can't happen, so what makes them right? Because a bunch of people get together and they say we have microscopes and telescopes so we can tell you that it can't happen. Really? How do they know? What are they going to do with the eyewitness accounts written in the New Testament that says to the contrary? So,
well, I would say that, and it may just be my voice cracking a little bit because I do my voice is a little harsh. So I hope that's not what the people out there responded to. One thing, chemical reactions in my brain. Yes, chemical reactions in my brain. That's correct. But what I think the problem is, and especially when you talk to theists in general, is they cannot escape from the notion that there is some type of ghost in the machine. So I and my brain is one. So yes, it's a chemical reaction. I am an organism. So there is no distinction between me and my brain or me and my body. It is just me. So yes, I am responding in the naturalistic universe to inputs that are coming into my system, my organism, and I'm producing an output based on that. And this is the same thing that you're doing, and you cannot avoid it. That's why the questions that you're responding to are directly addressed to the question that I put forward, because you wouldn't be able to respond to me, cause and effect, unless you heard it from me first. So that's one thing. The second, because you had 2 points, I'll try not to talk too long, but I would just say right quick, why would we trust what some guy said now? Well, I would trust what some guy would say now because we have the same knowledge that they had plus some, and they do not. So they don't know what we know now. And we know enough to create technology that would seem to them to be magic. So we know more about reality than they know about reality. So they may have some good insight, but if the things that we know now and we could use to produce technology is contradicting what they're saying, then their opinions is really garbage. Now, we know of examples where we had eyewitness testimony of people from various cultures claiming things to be fantastic, and you wouldn't accept any of this. So why would we accept the eyewitness testimony of long dead people thousands of years ago? That's irrational.
Well, you said a lot of stuff. So let me see if I can respond to it. I wrote down the notes. I just buried it in my screen. Here we go. Well, like I said, chemical reactions, you admitted that is the case, but you got to understand the problem with that position. What you're saying then is that your brain is doing nothing more than reacting chemically. You can't demonstrate from that one chemical state in the brain that leads to another chemical state in the brain is producing proper logical inference. If you were to say that logic necessitates your truth by asking questions that you think are difficult, then you're abandoning your own worldview and you're arguing against yourself and you're refuting your own idea. Now, there's supposed to be a discussion on morality, but we'll get back to it, because only thing you could say is that morals are the result of chemical reactions, but it doesn't mean that those chemical reactions produce proper moral absolutes, which I can give you more if you want. And you're a naturalist. I'm not a naturalist. So we don't have the same worldview. So when you say I have the same problem, no, I do not affirm that. You're what's called a property dualist. I'm a substance dualist. A property dualist is somebody who believes that the mind is a property of the physical brain. And a substance dualist would say that the mind is something different than the brain, but they're related. And so your view would say that when your brain physically dies, you cease to exist. Your mind ceases because it's a property. Well, that would mean the mind is necessarily constricted to whatever chemical state the brain is in. And since you say you have no free will, you can't even determine or defend the idea that your free will is active in this discussion, which means that nothing that you're saying is of your volition. It's just chemical reactions. And I could ask you, please determine and develop a method for showing us all that your chemical reactions are producing proper logical inference. And you won't be able to do that without abandoning your own view, which means you're refuting your own view. And you said that we know more about reality than they did. Well, really? Really? Well, the Bible says that the shape of the earth is a circle. The earth is suspended in nothing. The stars are innumerable. There's existence of valleys in the sea. That's how oceanography got started, by the guy who saw that verse and checked things out. The existence of springs and fountains in the sea. The existence of water paths or ocean currents in the sea. The hydrologic cycle. The concept of entropy and the nature of health, sanitation, and sickness. These are all things taught in the Bible, in the Old Testament. Okay, and that was written, 2,400 years ago. And it's only now that science is catching up to what the Bible has already revealed. So to say that we know more now, well, you may know more particulars, like what a photon is. Maybe they didn't know what a photon is. But that doesn't determine morality. The issue here is morality. We're supposed to be discussing morality. And I don't think your questions are dealing with the topic at hand. So I would ask you this. What is your ultimate standard of moral right and wrong? What's your ultimate standard by which you can say something is right or is not wrong, or is a moral or is not a moral? What's your ultimate standard?
Okay, awesome. Those are good questions. All right, so right quick. Am I doing this from my own volition? Yes. And the reason why I say I'm doing it from my own volition is because I am the organism. I am the brain. So the brain is reacting through a chemical process. And you said that I would not be able to conceive of a method whether my logical inference is correct or not. Yes, we can. It's called objective science. It's called using the scientific method. I don't just use my own logical inference and leave it at that. I air that out to other individuals, other organisms, other brains who are responding to me, who are using not only their intuitions, but their past experiences, which is causing them to react and respond to my words. And we can then see which lines up more with what we conceive to be as truth. All right. So yes, that's the whole process of the scientific method in it being objective. All right. Now you said, what is my ultimate standard for right and wrong when it comes to morals? Okay. Very simply, if we look at history, right, we can see that morals change. So it cannot be something universal or prescriptive in a particular behavior. We're looking in the wrong area for that. When it comes to morals, We're looking in the wrong area. What is the ultimate standard? The ultimate standard is this. We are a social species, right? In order for us to survive in a natural world, a harsh natural world, and keep in mind, we can't always live like this with technology and cars and air conditioning. This is new. This is new. We've been on the planet for 200,000 years. We didn't have this comfortable life like we had not even for the past 200 years, all right? So in order for us to survive in this harsh reality, we have to work together. So the ultimate standard or morality is what allows us to be a socially cohesive unit. What allows us to work together is good. What stops us from working together is bad. What I'm saying is that has always been a reality since time immemorial. Now, depending on the circumstances, various groups may think of, based on their circumstances, some actions to take as opposed to other actions to take is what keeps them together. And indeed, that is what kept them together. So when you have to, so you can even look at time frames, right? The way Christians live during, the way the Jews lived during the time of Moses compared to the way Christians lived during the time of Roman occupation, during the way we live now. And even look at Victorian era Christianity. So you can see that people had different conceptions of what was right and what was wrong throughout this. But what is universal throughout all of that is that the rules that they had in place was working to keep those social groups cohesive and together so that they can survive and live on into the future. That's the ultimate standard. What keep people together as opposed to what tears them apart as groups.
All right. There's lots of different ways to go here, but you don't realize you've refuted yourself. You said that your brain is just working off chemical reactions. Okay, but it's just chemical reactions. Let me give you an illustration. You have chemicals on a table, and apart from them blowing up and killing you, you take a bunch of chemicals, you mix them together, and you put electricity in them and do a whole bunch. Does that produce proper logical inference and truth statements? No.
No.
And so why is it that your chemical brain is any different than that? If you just make it more complex, doesn't mean that you have a solution. It just means that you're just having more chemicals. So you will have to abandon that position and reevaluate your whole position in order to argue rationally, because you've built yourself a trap, and this could take others can spring it on you as well if you're going to hold to the idea of no free will. And to say that free will is simply your chemical reactions is a non-cohesive, a non-coherent statement. It doesn't work like that. And he said, if we look at history, we can see that morals change and there can't be universal. Well, let me ask you a question here. Is this statement true or false? Okay, the following statement, okay? The following statement, is it true or false? And I can put it in the text if you want, so you can see it. Where'd the window go? I got all these windows open. Hold on a sec, and I'll put it in the text. You have the text, right? You can see the text? Yes.
Yes, I can see the text.
And in the private chat, right?
Yes, sir.
So here's this. Okay, is this statement true or false? Quote, it is always morally wrong to torture babies to death merely for one's personal pleasure. Would you agree with this? Yeah.
I would say that that seems to be the case for all humans. So yes,
okay.
For any human being to torture a baby for the sake of their own personal pleasure, that will undoubtedly cause social unrest and disunity and disjunction, and that will be bad. That will always be bad. We cannot think of any human culture or society where torturing babies for pleasure would result in social cohesion. So yes, I can say that in the context of humans, that is always wrong. We do know that it cannot be universal because we know there are animals that they may not be murdering babies for pleasure, but we know there are animals who eat their offspring. We know there are animals who kill babies and infants all the time, their own species, mind you. So it can't be universal because we know that there are organisms that engage in those behaviors, and clearly they don't think there's anything wrong with that. All right.
Okay, well, it's not about animals; it's about people. That's what we're talking about: morality of people.
Yes,
Okay.
we are a social species. We are animals. We're composed of humans, animal cells. Women produce live young. They make milk in the breast like a cow.
Okay.
We are literally animals.
So you say, you're begging the question there, but you say it's always wrong to torture babies to death merely for one's personal pleasure. You said that's true. So
For
then
humans,
you
yes.
believe you believe in an objective moral truth, don't you? Because that's what that is.
No. Notice I said that there is no context in which torturing babies for one's personal pleasure will lead to social cohesion. So the behavior itself, the torturing babies, is just a behavior. I'm not looking at morality at the actual act. I'm looking at morality as in the context of whether this causes social cohesion or it does not. You see what I'm saying? And then I would look even further, and I would say this, just very quick. I'm sorry. I would say that evolution have instilled in human beings through various mechanisms, like for real feelings of guilt and remorse and disgust, and we have mirror neurons, empathy and sympathy. We have all of these mechanisms, biological mechanisms in our brain that actually leads to social cohesions amongst members of our group. We know that to be a fact, and we know this is the same for other biological species. Other organisms have the same thing. Any social species has similar mechanisms in their brain. So this is where the feeling of the sympathy comes from, the feeling of guilt and disgust. This is where this comes from, and this is what leads to these intuitions, and this is what leads to this belief that we have that such a thing is atrocious and cannot possibly ever be true, or cannot possibly ever be good, because of those mechanisms. So those are evolutionarily instilled. At the same time, that doesn't mean that as evolution crafted us to be something else, and if nature made it in a way that if we did torture babies for pleasure, that would aid in our survival, then we would all be here saying that torturing babies is the best thing since sliced cheese or whatever.
Well, you have a multiple set of problems here. One, you're saying that it's universally true that it's wrong to do that, yet you're saying for humans, you're saying that out of this basis of chemical reactions in your brain, which you can't determine are true for everybody, so you're refuting your own position. To say it's universally true is to refute your own chemical reaction theory. An objective truth is a truth that is true regardless of whether or not someone believes it or not to be true. It's true whether or not someone's chemical reactions in their brain produce yes or no to a certain moral value. That's that. You have a problem with circularity. You said that which is bad is what stops being socially cohesive, and that which is good is what aids or allows social cohesion. So in other words, social cohesion is good. Well, what's good? Good is what allows social cohesion. So social cohesion is what is good. So what is good? So it's that over there. Well, what's that over there? That's good. What you're doing is arbitrarily setting up something. You say the standard is social cohesion, and that's good. Well, why is it good? Because I define it as being good. And what is good? Well, good is what is social cohesion. So it's a circular argument, which you can't justify as being valid in circularity. And since you don't believe in free will, and since you've affirmed already that it's just chemical reactions in your brain just forcing you to say these things, you don't have any leg to stand on. You don't have any logical basis by which you can assert anything as being right or wrong or true or false. Don't you see the problem here?
No, because I didn't actually make that statement that social cohesion is good. Never made that claim. No. I didn't say that social cohesion is what is good. I said evolution as a social species. Evolution has instilled in us various biological mechanisms that allow us to work together. And we humans invented the idea of good and bad. So good and bad are concepts that we invented, and that what we label to be good historically have been those things that led to social cohesion. And what we labeled as bad, which we invented, were those things that did not lead to social cohesion. So it's not a circular argument at all. I'm saying that evolution by way of natural selection and various other mechanisms of evolution, has as us as social species, not only us, but it created the conditions in social species where pro-social behaviors will be intuited, and we will feel it, and we'll have those empathy and sympathy and all that other things to actually champion this so that we can survive and spread our genes into the future. We've always was in tune with that. That's why we have gut instincts. This is how we have feelings of whether something is right or wrong. But what I'm saying is that corresponds to the rules, the laws, the norms that our in-group has created. And different in-groups can create different norms and rules, but evolution will condition us to, if we feel ourselves a part of that group, to see those things that the group has conceived of as being the good, and anything against that group, those groups' conceptions as being bad. So it's not a circle argument at all. That's not my claim.
I'm just going to jump in real quick. I just got some word from the chat, Derek. It looked like everything was improved with your camera for a while there. It's just starting to get glitchy again. So I'm not too sure. I know you changed your connection earlier and it got rid of the glitchiness. Now, that being said, we could still hear you. It's just some brief glitching. If there's nothing you can do to fix it, that's fine. Just wanted to relay that just in case.
Yeah, I don't think there's anything I can do.
It might be the light behind you, because that light it might have an adverse effect on your camera because of its location. Okay, when he's gone, we'll talk bad about him. Oh, that looks kind of better. Let's see if it works.
There we go.
There we go. You look cool. You look cool.
Oh, even better looking now. No, I think something's up with his system.
Okay, it's
not very good. You need a better light on you. I think it's glitching. Oh, I'm a tech guy, so I've studied this stuff, but yeah, I'll let the host do it.
I will point out there have been times in the past, Derek, if you want to try it, sometimes in these instances, if you actually shut off the camera, it'll save some bandwidth if there is some issues with the camera. And then that way your questions and arguments come out a little more clear.
Okay, I'm gonna shut off the camera right now. Let me know if this is a little bit.
Yeah, we'll see if that.
All right.
Okay.
Oh, look at that picture. Yeah, okay. My face was a little slimmer. All right.
Okay. You look good. You look good.
Don't pick it.
We can try this out and see if it fixes the glitchiness in the audio. If not, it's up to you. You can go camera or not, but we'll see if this fixes it. So I apologize, gentlemen. Go ahead. I think, Matt, you're about to respond to Derek.
Yeah, I just had a question. Why is social cohesion the right basis for determining what is moral or immoral?
Oh, I never said it was the right one, as if I'm making some objective claim. I'm saying that we are a social species, period. That's an objective fact of reality. We are a social species. All right. So whatever behaviors that we engage in, what leads to us being socially cohesive so that we can survive in a harsh reality, we are going to label that good. Subjectively, we're going to label that good. That's what we have been doing historically. And we will label the stuff that does not cause that bad. Historically, that's what we've done, always. This has always been the case. That's the claim.
Are you saying what AIDS survivability is what is good?
I'm not saying what AIDS and survivability is good.
What is it?
That's not the claim.
Oh,
good is something that we've made up. Bad is something that we've made up. We are a social species. Whether we survive into the future or not is irrelevant. The Earth is going to be here regardless. Whether the Earth survives into the future is irrelevant. But we as social species who want to spread our genes, who want to live a long time, who want to be happy, who do not want to feel pain, who do want to feel pleasure, right? Who don't want to live in fear.
Okay.
This is how we live that way.
So you don't have
by working together.
You don't have an ultimate moral standard of right and wrong. Everything's subjective. Yeah.
No. The only thing that exists objectively are fields of energy and their associated particles. That's the only thing that we know of. Now, In the future, we may discover other existing things that aren't physical.
Do my thoughts exist objectively?
Your thoughts do not exist objectively, no.
So I'm not really here talking. I'm not here talking to you.
Clearly, you are there. Certainly, that's the case because you are made up of fields of energy and the associated particles. So you're made up of neutrons and protons and electrons and everything else like that. So
but I'm voicing my thoughts. You said the thoughts don't exist. So how can I voice something out of that which does not exist?
I didn't say they exist subjectively. Certainly, they do not exist objectively. No. So your speech, did you not understand? It exists subjectively. It does not exist objectively. So objective existence is in reference to objects. Your thought is not an object. Your brain is an object. Your neurons are objects. The gray matter is objects. Your limbs are objects. They're made up of particles. So yes, that exists certainly objectively.
So the particles are producing morals, because this is we're supposed to be discussing morality. So right. do you have an absolute moral that's true for everybody?
Certainly, yes.
What is? Okay, I'm gonna write it down. What is the universal applicable moral? What is it?
Oh yeah, very very simply this: whatever aids social cohesion is good. Whatever does not is bad.
Wait, whatever aids?
Yeah. So
social cohesion is good.
Let's imagine a society. For example.
Wait, I'm trying to get it right. Okay. Whatever aids social cohesion is good, and whatever does not is bad.
Yes.
Okay. Why is that the right standard?
Because that has been instilled in us through evolution. This is evolutionary psychology here. Now, if you would like more information, I'll share my screen. I'm going
to start asking you more questions now.
Yeah, I mean, you can go to the Stanford Encyclopedia of Philosophy and look up evolution and morality. And there's a ton of articles, a ton of science coming out, especially in the field of evolutionary psychology, that is laying out the case.
I read a lot. Yeah, I've read a lot of that stuff, and I find it to be incoherent and insufficient. So whatever aids social cohesion is good. So and whatever does not is bad. So is that a moral good or a moral bad?
It's a biological imperative. So
okay, we're talking about morality. Is it a moral good or a moral bad?
This is what I'm saying. So what we have oftentimes is we as human beings fail to remember or fail to understand is that we could come up with concepts. We invent language. We can come up with concepts, but oftentimes we forget what language and these concepts actually are, whether they're referring to something objective as far as objective existence or not. Right. So we can use terms, but we cannot equivocate. If we do, then we can't communicate effectively. Right. So when I say exist objectively, I'm talking specifically about objects that actually exist. Now, there are concepts, and you can talk about a concept existing conceptually. So certainly concepts can exist conceptually, but it's not an objective physical existence.
But I'm asking, moral, our discussion is on morality, Christian morality versus your morality. And so you said that a universal moral, whatever aids social cohesion is good, whatever does not is bad. So I asked you, is that good and that bad a moral good and bad?
In its capacity, it's more along the lines of it's pragmatic, right?
So it's not moral, it's pragmatic. But we're not debating pragmatism, we're debating morality. So can you give me something that's moral? That's right or wrong to do. I would assume that you would think that rape is wrong. I'm hoping you would assume that, like I do, right?
Certainly. Now,
okay. And so universal rape is wrong. I mean, universal rape. I mean, rape is wrong universally.
We don't rape the universe.
yeah. I was thinking like a Democrat. Sorry. So it would be like so rape is wrong universally, all the time, everywhere, right?
In human societies, that seems to be the case, but we know that in other species, for example, the only way that ducks, if I go back to my biology text, the only way that ducks reproduce is by rape. They only male rapes only rape female ducks to the point where their sexual organs are became very complex, almost like it spirals, just to make raping more literal.
Okay, I'm gonna, hold your feet a little to the fire here more. You give long answers, and that's, that's interesting, but
Sorry
we
about
need to
that.
stay on topic. And the issue is morality. See, I have an objective moral standard, and that is God himself, who's revealed his will based on his character in the word of God. It is wrong to lie, for example, because God cannot lie, Titus 1:2. This is why lying is universally bad, because it rejects, or it is an offense against the character of God, who's universal. And rape also is condemned in Scripture. It's wrong, and there's reasons for it, but it's wrong. You and I both agree. So I can say, yeah, it's a morally wrong thing to do to rape someone. Could you say it's morally wrong to rape someone? Also, can you say that?
Yeah, I don't have to. See, for the longest time, Thea's had defined this realm, and we had to walk in your arena. And we've been trying to, stepping on fire, trying to reach your standard. But your standard is something that you just thought of, you just asserted. You haven't demonstrated that that's actually the case. For you to demonstrate that's actually the case, you have to demonstrate this is God, one. And then you have to say that what you have discovered about God is consistent. So, for example, you said that God cannot lie. In the Bible, if I'm not mistaken, God told Adam that if he eat from the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, he will surely die. He did not surely die. He was still alive. So ultimately, God lied. But even if that's not the case, even if you try to turn it around and say that's not the case, you have to ask yourself, it's been defeated. This is deontology, and it's been defeated. Matter of fact, the categorical imperative of Kant, with the simple question of, say, Anne Frank knocks on your door, she's running away from Nazis. And you let her in, you hide in the attic, and then the Nazi knocks on the door and say, "Hey, have you seen a little Jewish woman running around here?" Are you going to say, "Oh yeah, she's up in my attic"? I can't lie. Or are you going to say, "No, I haven't seen her. She went that way"? You're going to lie. Is that evil to do that? Is that a bad thing? Is that morally wrong? That idea has already been defeated a long time ago.
You haven't established objective morals. You haven't you have not demonstrated that your chemical reactions that the brain that you have is producing these statements are in fact true. You haven't produced any reason for any of us to say that we can trust your judgments as being rational. You've admitted that you hold to this idea of naturalism and no free will, and so that's a problem. By the way, Genesis 2:17, with the death that he's speaking of there was not merely physical death, because in the Bible, physical death is a manifestation of spiritual death. You can go to Romans 6:23, Isaiah 59:2. I'm a theologian. I know what the scriptures teach on this. I do recommend that you study that issue. There's this website you can go to called carm.org, and you can look up Genesis 2:17 and that issue, and I'll give you the answers there. But so you said that whatever aids social cohesion is good, and whatever it does not is bad. And earlier I said that your definition of what is good is what aids social cohesion. You said that wasn't the case, but yeah, it is the case that you did say that. So whatever aids social cohesion is good, and good is whatever aids social cohesion. Can you please explain to me why that is just not circular reasoning without any validity?
Yeah, number one, because I'm saying that the term good is a concept that human beings have invented. There is no good out there objectively existing in the universe somewhere. Like if we look at the standard model of particle physics of what actually exists in reality, you're not going to find good there. All right, good is a concept that we've invented. I'm what is called a limited materialist. All right, so I can still speak on as what does exist objectively. Organisms exist objectively. We are physical beings, for lack of a better term. We physically exist. We physically engage in behaviors, right? We know that in order for us to be a social species, which we have defined ourselves as being, in order for us to be a social species, in order for us to have this communication that we're having right now, to engage in the topic of talk, which people are seeing all over the world, whatever, like, well, I don't know how many people are watching. Hopefully a lot of people are watching. This is an activity of a social species. Even as we disagree on the topic, we're communicating with each other. We invented language so that we can communicate with each other, so that we can work together, so that we can work out issues. This is how we determine whether what we're thinking or how we're responding to each other is logical or not, because I could put it out there to the world where other organisms could listen to. They've now just experienced my argument. And then they can use their past experiences in what I just presented and try to see if what I'm saying is making sense or not, and then respond appropriately. So what I'm saying is we're a social species, and we have these natural mechanisms.
Hey, you're
that
repeating yourself.
Yes.
You're repeating yourself at length. I understand that.
I apologize.
Okay. But so you said that there is no good out there objectively existing. All right. So yet you said that it was morally wrong. That means if something's bad, there's going to be good. But you agreed that it's always wrong for anyone to torture babies to death merely for their personal pleasure. That is bad. That's morally wrong. Mm-hmm. You said you agreed that. Now, what it means to have an objective morality, an objective truth, is that something that is true, regardless of whether or not someone believes it to be true. In other words, it does not depend upon any particular human person's beliefs. It doesn't become true because you or I believe it, or false because you or I believe it's false. An objective truth would be something that is not dependent upon you or me for its validity and its truth. If you're going to say that, yes, it's always wrong for anyone to torture babies to death merely for their personal pleasure, what you're saying is there's a universal truth. It is not dependent upon an individual's affirmation or denial of that. Since you're agreeing it's universally true, it's always wrong for anyone. So if that's the case, you're believing in a universal moral truth, which is an objective truth, which refutes your statement. So can you please explain how you can say that there is no objective truth at the same time while you're admitting that there is an objective truth?
I never once said that it was an objective truth by the standard that you're presenting. So I said that for us to say, for humans, it's always going to be wrong. What I'm saying is that there is no context in which a human society can exist at the human group. And this is how we've always lived in groups. There will never be a context in which a human group, a human society, would look at that, torturing babies for personal pleasure, would look at that and think that's a good thing. It cannot possibly lead to social cohesion. It cannot. So that's how I can make an absolute objective statement as in reference to that claim. Now, if you say some other claim outside of, say, torturing babies for personal pleasure, what if we was to say it's always wrong to kill another human, right? Now, certainly that seems almost universal. And certainly we had these pro-social mechanisms in our brain that would prevent us from killing another human. But notice that we treat a murderer different than how we would treat a soldier. So what we've discovered is that, and you also see prescription from God telling people to kill other people, right? So it cannot be universal even in that sense. When the terrorists...
Let me ask you another one then.
Yeah.
It is always wrong for any human male to beat and rape any female, female, merely for his personal pleasure. You'd agree that that's universally true, right? In
human society, it has. You're not gonna try to. So
is it universally true?
Is it universally true? Matter of fact, I'll contextualize it even more. Right? Let us suppose. Well,
hold on. If it's universally true, how do you have a universal truth like that?
Yeah,
in your atheism,
it's true in the context of human society. So it's certainly true for humans. So it's certainly true.
Wait, it's true on human society? How do you know it's true for human society?
There has never been, nor will there ever be, a human society where it's okay for men to rape and beat.
Do you know all past human societies?
We can use anthropology and everything else. Well, I'm making a claim. I'm making a statement.
Do you know all
this could be tested. This could be tested scientifically. So my statement.
Hold on. You don't know all past human societies, so you can't say that all the ones in the past. Nor do you know all future ones, so you can't say all the future ones either. That's just not logical for you to say that. You're making a universal claim again. You keep asserting objective morals, objective truth statements when you say they don't exist. You're refuting yourself constantly.
No, the reason why is because you cannot take yourself out of your worldview and put yourself in my worldview. I can do that. I know the Christian worldview because I used to be a Christian, so I know I know the Christian worldview. I know of that. You know, the notion of a soul and
well, why is rape wrong? Because it damages social cohesion.
Well, certainly. And then on top of that, what I can make a further statement, right? I can make a further statement in saying, when I say that it's wrong, it's only wrong for the English. So we know of instances in the past where people who would think that it's always wrong to murder and rape make no qualms about murdering and raping someone from a neighboring tribe.
Why is rape morally wrong?
See, you keep trying to put it in context to behavior, the behavior itself. And I'm trying to tell you that morality doesn't exist in the individual behavior. Any behavior
rape is not morally wrong?
Once again, so it says that you're trying not to understand me. Yeah, that's fine. So if you just give me a minute.
No, I'm trying to understand. I'm trying to understand. You have these very long answers. So I'm just trying to have to get in. Is rape morally wrong, or is it not the case that it's morally wrong?
Okay. There will never be a human society in which it's okay for rape. It will never be the case.
So you have all knowledge about all possible human societies.
The reason why
statement.
Right. The reason why I will say this is this. We cannot logically conceive a situation in which rape being permitted would lead to social cohesion in a group that's trying to work together. And as a social species, we're compelled to do that. Wait up one second, man. Right. Now, keep in mind that this is only true for the in-group. It's not necessarily true for the out-group. So we do know this is where, let me just finish the statement. Because we even know in instances in the Bible where God even instructs the Israelites, for example, to kill all of the Amalekites and keep the young virgins for themselves. So we know that was an instruction by God that he had to the Israelites. So what that is showing is human psychology here, where the Israelites would of course see rape as being evil, atrocious. But when
they would not have been raped. They would not have been raped. No, that was not the case. No.
So when you keep the young virgins for themselves, we're talking about having sex with them, right?
No, the only way to do that is to marry them. They had to be married in order to do that, according to the Jewish custom.
You believe these women willingly enter into matrimony?
I don't know. I don't know if it was
their fathers and their brothers.
I don't know if it was
the older sisters who had experienced sex before, and they were like, "Okay."
If I were you, I wouldn't worry about it, Derek, because it certainly aided to the Israelites' social cohesion to do that.
Yes, and it did. You're absolutely right, and that's why they didn't see that as being evil. And here's the point.
Wait. You said social cohesion is good.
Yes.
And so you brought up this issue about Israel, and I'm just saying that what you complained about is what held the Jewish social cohesion even better. So why are you complaining about it?
I'm not. This is the way people live.
Well, then why are you raising these objections up as being something that's wrong? You don't have a right or wrong. So why are you saying that they're right and wrong when you don't have one?
Exactly. No, exactly. No. I'm not judging what God, if he existed and if that story actually took place, except to the Israelites. I'm not even labeling it as being evil. So if that's what you think, then you think wrong. So I'm not judging what people did in the past.
So you don't have a standard of right and wrong. We're talking morality here. You don't have a standard of right and wrong because you just refuted yourself. You said social cohesion. You raised up the Israelites and they're killing the Amalekites. Right. There's a reason for that. And then you said you didn't like that, but that aids to the social cohesion of the Jews. So that's good, right? Is it good?
Now would be a good time for me to look at my last slide for the PowerPoint. Do you mind if I just turn to that right quick? That last page, we didn't really have a good, because I actually explained it and I just didn't get a chance to talk about it. So let me just pull it up right quick because I don't want you to think that I'm just making things up on the spot or something like that. But I actually addressed that even in the initial PowerPoint. So let me just pull it up right quick and just open up this last slide. You can see me here, right?
Yes, let me pull it up and what we'll do. And what we'll do for this last 10 minutes or so of discussion, make your few points from the PowerPoint, Derek, and then we'll give Matt Slick equal time to respond. And then we'll kind of go back and forth with, okay, here we go.
Okay, so you can look at Christian auxiliary beliefs here. And I think
what?
Derek, with your with your connection, I'm not sure if now that you're.
I can see it. I can see it. Yeah.
Yeah. If you wanted to restart, I think with your connection issues with your audio, it was a lot of bandwidth for your screen share. But if you want to try again, go ahead.
I see it.
See you now. Yeah, we're good. If you want to restart what you were saying.
You can hear? Okay.
It's probably going to be too difficult with your current audio issues, Derek, because
I copied it. I screen copied it, so I see it. He can get rid of the screen share and he can just talk. I see it. He can read it and I'll see it, for what it's worth.
Because now you're completely frozen, Derek. I'm not sure if he's completely frozen. Derek, if you want to click end screen share, that might bring you back to us, because you were okay prior to the screen share, and that.
Oh, he left.
Okay. It's you versus me now, Matt. So what do you want to debate?
Let's talk about him behind his back. Let's talk smack about him behind his back.
So what do you really think about Derek?
Actually, he seems like a nice guy. He does. We can fill the time. I mean, I don't know about us being fair, but I think.
Well, I do got some questions. I'm sure he's going to be back in. I don't know. Usually his connection and his audio is pretty good. It's a little rough today. I do got some super chats and questions. I can find a couple of
questions.
Let's do it. Let's have some fun.
I'm good. I'm good.
Actually, here we go. Michael to save the day, because he just tagged a question specifically for you, Matt. So I haven't even had a chance to read it. Let's see. We'll read it together. At Standing for Truth, question for Matt. If God's morals are so fundamental and unchanging, why were things we consider immoral today perfectly fine in the Old Testament? What are your thoughts, Matt?
What things are you talking about that are moral today? And just because something is immoral today doesn't mean it's right or wrong. If you're going to say that the morals of God are fundamental and unchanging, then by definition, they're fundamental and unchanging. If the morals of today change, that doesn't mean that those morals back then aren't true. So you had to have a way of establishing whether or not they're true or not, or what is or is not moral. Plus, morality comes out of the character of God. And as the Bible declares, in the last days, people will gather false teachers and become immoral and things like that. And then Isaiah 50 or 5:20 says, woe to those who say good is evil and evil is good, which is exactly what's happening. And I released an article on this today, a little bit on Carmen, another one probably tomorrow on it. Anyway, he's back.
I'm sorry. I don't know where I got cut off at. Sorry.
Oh, you were just saying, Matt, you're so great and you're right about everything.
Yes. I remember that.
That's right. I have it right there. And that's why the universe froze. It just.
Well, this will definitely be a debate to remember then. Actually, Derek, so I'm not sure.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I copied your two worlds thing, Christianity, auxiliary beliefs, naturalism. I have it on my screen. I did a screen copy. So if you want to just talk through it, I got it. I mean,
okay. Well, awesome.
And I was going to point out real quick, Derek. I think maybe that you left and came back and refreshed your system. Your webcam currently is not glitchy and your audio is coming in really good. So I don't know how long that's going to last, but let's take advantage of it and have some more organic, free-flowing dialogue. So go ahead. Floor is yours, gentlemen. We'll try and keep it as equally timed as possible now for the last few minutes. Go ahead.
Absolutely. Yeah, the point I was just trying to make with that last slide is pretty much this, right? Yes, the Israelites was working towards social cohesion of their group. The problem is they had an us in their mentality, and that's what justified whatever they wanted to do to the other group. They needed to do what they do to survive. They thought that was good, and they were able to justify it because they looked at the other group as not being them. So this us versus them mentality, this has been and has always been one of the primary sources of evil that has ever affected the world. This is why the Germans had no problem with slaughtering the Jews, because they didn't see the Jews as being them. So you have to look at it like, and all of the Germans were the sociopaths. You know what I mean? They weren't. They were normal people. But they engaged in these behaviors because they had that us versus them mentality. They thought the Jews were evil. And because they thought that, that justified in their minds what they were doing. And they didn't think that they were doing anything wrong. They thought that what they were doing was right. And what I'm saying is that in the past, just right quick, I'm sorry. In the past, when we had very scarce resources and human bands and clans and tribes were in competition over these resources, any group that had that type of mentality, that allowed them to thrive and survive. It was good for that group. What I'm saying is we have an abundance of resources, and the weapons that we possess are too powerful that we do not want to live in that world where it's us versus them. We want to come together. We want to think universal humanity. And when we consider ourselves part of the human in-group, when we consider ourselves as part of the human in-group, then those same pro-social behaviors that we have for the in-group become those same pro-social behaviors we have for the entire group, all of humanity. And that's the message of humanism in general. All right. So we have to get away from the us versus them, parochialism, various ideologies that separate each other, because we see what that leads to. It leads to racism. It leads to all types of violence and genocide.
Okay, let's give Matt equal time. Yep, no problem. And we'll hand it over to Matt. Take your time for a response. Go ahead, Matt.
Yeah. Still, he's not surmounted the problem of his naturalism undermining his rationality, his argumentation, his very worldview. His chemical reaction position, no free will, means that he's not arguing from a coherent basis, but an illogical one. His position is self-refuting, and then to continue inside of a self-refuting principle is incoherent. Needs to be abandoned, but hopefully he will. And so I believe that Derrick's inconsistent. In one hand, he says there's no such thing as an objective morality, but moral. But then on the other hand, he says there is. It's always wrong. There's no society ever that has been or will be that's universal, an objective by definition. No society that has been or will be that will approve of rape. Well, that's a universal moral objective statement. So he refutes himself there. And as far as social cohesion goes, I don't have to go too far into all this, but the Nazis, he brought it up, the Nazis, weren't they just practicing social cohesion? Weren't the Germans of Germany practicing social cohesion? I'm personally interested in Nazism. I've been studying it more and more. The idiocy, the sin, the abhorrence that it is. I'm seeing the parallels in modern America, but that's another topic. They were at least practicing social cohesion. They had a group of people, the Jews, that they blamed for problems, and then they got rid of the problem. So that meant that the people were adhering to a common social goal, a common social good, a common social purpose, and to get rid of the problems. And that was a good for social cohesion. I think that inadvertently, Derrick's philosophy could lead to genocide and racism and all kinds of problems, because social cohesion there is no objective standard by which you can say what is and is not proper social cohesion. And because of it, it becomes subjective based upon personal preferences, and whoever's in power can then say, you are not supporting us in social cohesion. You conservatives who are terrorists, you Christians who are terrorists. These are the kind of things being said in the news today, because we're not advocating the democratic leftist propagandist socialist motif, and so therefore we're not advocating their social cohesion. So they're in power, they're going to silence us. That's how it's going to be. So you see, social cohesion, it's just not a good system. It doesn't work. You're self-refuting, you're inconsistent, and it's all kinds of problems. Okay,
I understand. Yeah, right quick. I'm not offering any philosophy. I'm not providing I'm telling you what is. So I'm not even engaging in that type of debate. I'm saying this is the case, and this has historically been a game that can be tested scientifically. I'm saying that all human beings, always think that whatever action they behave that they're doing, they all think that that's good, is right. What I'm saying is the Nazis were not sociopaths, that they thought they were good people when they was doing what they were doing. If you can actually test this with surveys. You can go to like prisons, or you can even go to the pews and you say, well, when you did this behavior, did you think you did it for a good reason? Or did you think it was good? Do you think you're evil? I'm saying that no one was going to say, yeah, I think I'm evil, or I did it for a bad reason. We can't do that. We're compelled from determinism to do what we think is good, right? The statement that we always do what we believe to be socially cohesive is only true, of course, if you're a sociopath. If you don't have these pro-social mechanisms, so there's variety in human species. So we have to definitely watch out for the sociopath. Don't get me wrong, but the average human being, the vast majority of human beings, are pro-social, right? So they're going to be compelled to want to be in their in-group. What I'm saying is, this is how humanity has always operated, and if we realize that that is the case, then that changes the way that we engage. So we would no longer want to, or we should not want to. This is a prescription. We should not want to, for our own sake, if we want to survive into the future and produce a more equitable world, or not even an equitable world, but a more peaceful world, a more peaceful society, then what we should do is consider everyone as one group. So there would not be the Germans versus the Jews. Where the Germans messed up, where we could look back at them and call them evil, is they didn't consider Jews to be German, even though the Jews were living in Germany. So if they considered them to be Germans, then they would not have done what they've done. You see what I'm saying? The fact that they considered them to be a member of the out group that justified the horrors that they did to them. And when we understand that about human psychology, when we understand the sources of this biologically, then we can take the steps to try to civilize by teaching civics. The civilized individuals, so we don't have that dichotomy. Yes, there's too much of that Republican, Democrat bullcrap. Yes, there's too much of that Christian versus non-Christian bullcrap. I'm not here saying one is better than the other. I'm trying to show you what's at stake for the future of humanity. We got to cut that crap out. It's supposed to be bridge building. From your perspective,
yeah, no, I was just going to jump in there. I've got some questions here from the audience that we can get to before we call it a night and join some after shows. I guess since it's up to you, gentlemen. We had Derek start, and then Matt gave his opening statement second. If you wanted to have some final words there, Matt, just to be fair, or we can go right into questions. Whatever you guys want to do.
I'm ready for questions.
All right, let's do it. Let's do it. Good job, guys. Thanks for keeping it fun. It's been an hour and a half, so time is. Yeah, no problem. No, this was definitely a good debate. We've had a solid chat the entire time. I'm not going to be able to get to all these questions. I'm going to pick a few. We'll engage them a little bit, and then we'll call it a night. So let's see. We'll start with this one because this is a question for both, so we can get a little bit of both your input here. So question is from Gavin Hurleyman. Question for both. What stops atheist morality from degenerating into moral non-cognitivism? Whoever wants to start.
Well, I would say that the law of God is written on the hearts of all people, as the Bible says in Romans chapter 1 and 2. Read the whole thing. They know what is right and wrong, and so they have a sense of right and wrong, and that's why they do things. Typically, the atheist says, though, it doesn't aid in survivability, but then that has its problems. But that'd be the basic reason I'd give.
Okay, not 100% with non-cognitivism. I guess you could explain that term, and then I could respond a little better. But I would say this, right? We've done studies, especially associated with the trolley problem, where the question is asking individuals, like, if a train is barreling down a track and it's on its way to hit 5 people, and then on another track there's just one person, would you click the switch to kill one person as opposed to the 5. And people answer one type of way. And then there's another variant of the problem where it says, okay, well, if you could push a fat guy down, that's the one person. So the train is barreling to kill 5 people. Where if you push this fat guy down, would you push the fat guy down to kill him instead of the 5 people? It's basically a moral equivalent. How would they respond? Now, overwhelmingly, the people would click the switch, but they will not push the fat guy. And they say, well, why is that the case? Right? Why is that the case? It's because there are 2 moral centers in the human organism. One is located at the back of the brain, which is very old, and this is where our gut instincts come from. And another area is in our forebrain. So in the front of our brain, this is where our reason takes place, right? So we can reason into clicking the switch. But when it comes to pushing someone, there's so many biological social mechanisms that relates to this gut instinct that we just can't get around that hump. We're not going to do that. You see what I'm saying? So we've discovered that in actual scientific studies. So the ones who has the final word on what is moral and what is not, when it comes to this whole question, what are we actually talking about? The exciting things are taking place in the science lab. It's taking place in studies. It's not in the field of philosophy. It's been dead in philosophy for thousands of years. This is not where it's at.
All right.
It's in science.
Okay, thank you, gentlemen. This next one's going to be for Matt. So let me see here. This is a super chat from Crimson Air. Thank you so much for your super chat. Question for Matt Slick. Is there a quality of the immaterial soul that cannot be scientifically accounted for by the physical property of the brain?
Yeah, the continuity of identity. If the physical property of the brain, the physical aspect of the brain is changing chemically, and if property dualism is in effect, then that would mean then that you were not the same person you were 30, 40 years ago. If you're not the same person, well, then you can't be held responsible for things you did 30, 40 years ago. But if you are going to say that, yeah, you are responsible, and that there's a coherence, and then it can't be that property dualism is true, you must adhere to substance dualism, and then say that, or the implication is that there's a soul, a spirit that continues independently of that physical body. Otherwise, you can't justify holding someone responsible after their physical body, brains, all chemical, everything has been replaced, regenerated over decades of time with new foods, new this, new that, new viruses, new whatever. They're not the same person. So that would be one of the things. In order to refute that, you'd have to say that property dualism is not false, which refutes that whole position, which means the other one must be true. So there you go.
Okay, I appreciate that response.
Can I just make something right quick?
Yeah, if you want to make it quick, go ahead.
And I know that was Matt's question. Right quick. Everyone is the genes that they inherited and the experiences that they inherited. I mean, the experiences that they had. That's it. That's all you are. That's all anyone would ever be. Outside of the physical body, the physical brain that's moving in this universe, is moving in this reality. So you are your genes that give you your, whether you're introvert or extrovert, and then it gives you your, and then whatever experience you have, you're going to act out the way you're going to act out. You can't get away from that. But the idea that you can't hold someone responsible, this once again, it's the ghost in the shell. It's just the shell. You can hold the shell responsible. If a bear is tearing up, killing a bunch of campers, and that's what it does, you don't have to judge the bear. You don't have to be mad at the bear. You still put the bear down because it's killing campers, and you don't want it to kill campers.
Okay, I appreciate that response. And as always, whoever the question is for, we like to give them the last word. Therefore, Matt, if you had a couple of last words, but then we can move on to the next question.
Oh, go ahead.
Okay, perfect. So we've got... let's see which one I can choose. Okay, so we'll go with one for Derek now. Question from Skyout. Thank you for your question. Ask Derek, what is objectively real?
Oh yeah, just fields of energy and the associated particles. So we can look at the standard model of particle physics. That's objectively real insofar as it objectively exists. All right. Now, everything else, all the other words that we have, every other description that we have, these are conventions of humans to help us communicate with each other so that we can work together. That's it. So languages is made up, our notions of truth and everything else like that. Either it corresponds to something objective in reality, and when it does, then you can give it a coordinate. You could say at time X, at length this, distance this, height this, at this location in three-dimensional space at this particular time, this was here. You could say things like that. And that is what we gave the label of as truth. But of course, all of these terms are just conventions of human beings. So the only thing that exists that's real are fields of energy and its associated particles. That's it.
Okay, I appreciate that response, Derek. If you had a quick response as well, Matt, you can go ahead.
Yeah, he doesn't know if that's the case. He just believes it's the case. He doesn't know the nature of the universe or all things by which he can make that statement is universally true, which means it would be an objective truth statement, which he says really can't exist. So he's refuting himself even by asserting that. So.
Infallibilist, that could be correct. Matt could absolutely be correct there. What I can only say is this. The most supported position in science and in philosophy is physicalism. And that's what physicalism says about reality. Of course, science operates using methodological naturalism. There could be these other things. We just have no evidence that that's the case. In the future, if we discover some evidence that that's the case, then I'll be more than happy to change my mind. I'll have a new experience and I'll be happy to change my mind. But the way it exists at the moment, that other stuff doesn't seem to exist.
Okay, I appreciate that. We'll move on to this super chat here from SWE, $5 super chat. I appreciate it. Might be more of a comment, but you guys can give a response if you feel necessary. Given that the difference between human populations is a mere 10%, is the universality of many morals that, okay, so it's a question, really that surprising? Whoever would like to respond, go ahead.
Go ahead.
Spot on. Yeah, spot on. Yeah, that's the reason why that's the case. Now, when you have various human populations that are pushed to extremes based on, say they live in extreme conditions, right? In general, we don't cannibalize each other. But if you live in a society where there's not enough protein or something like that, you may find a human society that does cannibalize. Or say you're on a camping trip, and then now you find yourself stuck somewhere and you're about to die. You cannibalize in order to survive. Or we can look at an Inuit tribe that's living in the harsh conditions of the Arctic. If they have a child at an inopportune time, then it's surely the case that the mother and the child will die. So what they would do is if they have a child out of season, they'll kill the child in order for that group, the society to survive. And this was true of an Inuit group. I forget the name of that Inuit tribe. So this had been the case historically, right? What we determined, and of course, they lived in a culture where that was seen as a good thing, of course. But we look at that like, oh no, that can't possibly be a good thing. But historically, that was the case, So, but for the vast majority of humanity, the vast majority of people, they're living in similar conditions for the most part, and we all have to work together in order to survive. So we're all going to make very similar rules in order to remain socially cohesive. And these are the things that we look at and we say, oh, this is universal. Every group does that. Well, you certainly can't, lying doesn't lead to social cohesion. Stealing doesn't lead to social cohesion. Killing and rape, that doesn't lead to social cohesion. Of course, it would appear universally true. So superhero energy, spot on.
Well, thank you for the response. Thanks for the super chat, SWE and Matt Slick, if you had a response at all.
No, let's move on to the next comment question.
Okay, perfect. So I got a super chat here. We're going to do this super chat, and then I'll pick one other question, and we'll call it a night because we've got super chat from Logical, Plausible, Probable, $5. Thanks so much. Let's see. Not really specifying anybody. I think it's for you, Derek, I'm guessing. So he says, it's a scientifically proven reality that codon / capital A, alphabet mapping is arbitrary and not caused by deterministic physics and chemistry. What are your thoughts on this? Can you counter my claim?
Hold on. You said codon triplicate is not determined by determinism. I say that's belied by the evidence of biochemistry. So that's not true. So That's scientifically not true. All that's determined by the physical laws and forces. That's reality.
Okay.
If you want to, yeah, if he want to give some other type of response, but yeah, triple codon, yeah, that's a process of determinism. That's all the cause and effect, causality, locality. These operate off of basic scientific principles of determinism. We have no evidence to the contrary.
All right. All right, I appreciate that. What I'll do is we've got a ton of questions here for you, Derrick, and I've got just a couple here for Matt. So what I'll do, since you just answered that question directed at you, I'll choose one of these for Matt, and then we'll call it a night. I want to thank everybody for all your questions, super chats, and your support. This has definitely been a good debate. So this question is from Argotha for Slick. Why don't you just state the gospel so that everyone that is elect will be automatically enlightened and walk away?
That's a dumb question. Okay, next. It's an antagonistic question if somebody doesn't know the real issues, and you know, come on, you can do better than that. So what else?
All righty,
this
I think
Calvinism. This is about morality and things like that here. Okay.
Good point. So I think that might be, let me see here. What I'll do is I'll save all the other questions as well. Derrick, if you want to check those out later, because I appreciate you being a good champ. A lot of questions for you. I want to thank the both of you for a good debate. It's flown by. We're almost going on a couple hours. We said we would be doing about an hour and a half. So, I don't want to keep you guys too much longer. I want to respect your time. Why don't we hand it over to you gentlemen for some final words, final thoughts before we close it down. And once again, I want to thank you both for giving us your time. Why don't we start with Matt? Once again, thanks for giving us your time. Thanks for a good debate.
Sure, I'll make it quick and slick. So unfortunately, Derrick's worldview is self-refuting. His naturalistic idea of chemical reactions, the sufficiency of the brain, no human free will, things like that, just means that his system of thought, his philosophical foundation is incoherent. He needs to abandon it. To say there are no spirits in the universe, he doesn't know that. He doesn't know all conditions and all places, all the universe. So he can't say that as being true. To say that the scientific method, or the implication of the scientific method being the only way really to determine truth, is not true, because how could you even use a scientific method to determine the scientific method's validity without begging the question, which means you have to leave it and adopt laws of logic and the universals of the laws of logic. That's a whole other topic we haven't even gotten into, the universals that are truth statements that are applicable to all people, which are objective reality statements and not dependent upon social cohesion for their validity. Human identity, he says, cannot be separated from the physical bodies. In physical determinism, choice is an illusion. That means his choice to argue is illusory and of no real value. It undermines the validity of his argumentation. I've shown that that there are objective morals. He's even admitted that there's objective moral, like the issue of universality against rape. And all cultures, he said, past and present, future, which means there's an objective truth that he is asserting that that is the case, and he can there, by his own wisdom, knowledge, experience, whatever, say this is how it must be. It doesn't make any sense from a restricted world of chemical reactions without free will, but he's made the statement nevertheless, and then stated that it is the case. So he's saying there's an objective truth about that, but yet he also says there are no such things as objective truths or moral truth statements, because rape is a moral issue. So there's an inconsistency on his part, left and right, up and down, and he's not made his case. We haven't really got into the case for the Christian God's basis for morality, though I did mention it briefly, but that's another topic. But he's not made the case that atheism makes any sense at all in his naturalistic worldview. I will say, though, that when you presuppose the Christian Trinitarian God, the ubiquity of his existence, us being made in his image, he's the author, of all that exists, both actual and potential. He's not the creator of sin, though. That's in our freedom to be able to do that and rebel against him. But he's the ultimate cause of all things, not necessarily the efficient cause of evil. That's another topic about causality. And so the thing is, if you were to say that there are morals, yes, there are universal morals because God is universally true. There are universal truth statements, yes, because God knows all things, and because he knows all things can reveal universal truth statements. I could get into all this kind of stuff and lay the foundation down, but we don't have time. And maybe we can discuss it another time. But that's my position. That's what it is. And thanks for the debate. I enjoyed it.
Awesome. I appreciate those final words, final thoughts. Definitely a good debate. I always appreciate your time, Matt. I appreciate your time as well, Derek. Derek, final thoughts, final words. Thanks again for a good debate. Derek, go ahead. Floor is yours.
Well, once again, thank you, Senator for Truth, for inviting me on. Matt Slick, you was great. I definitely appreciate the conversation. I understand your worldview, and I understand why you think the way why you do. You know, I was raised in the church. I understand that line of thinking. Unfortunately, I just have to look at the evidence for what it is. Right? Whether I want naturalism to be true or not is irrelevant. What are the implications of naturalism? This seems to be the case. This is the only thing that seems to have any verifiable evidence associated with it. Now, we can believe in God, and that's great, except when a claim contradicts what we can scientifically verify. And we cannot verify the existence of a soul. We cannot verify the existence of some type of uber consciousness that exists out there in the world. When it comes to the science, what consciousness seems to be is a three-dimensional map that organisms have made for themselves to help them navigate in the world. That's it. You know, we have sight, we have sound, we have taste, we have touch, we have experiences, and some organisms, and of course, you know, different organisms see things differently, hear things differently, and so on and so forth. But certain organisms use inputs from the natural world to help them survive in nature. And we have convinced ourselves that our subjective experience of these things are true. We've created languages and we speak and we believe that this has something true to do with reality, when in reality, it doesn't. When we look at the world, we see a three-dimensional, colorful world. Color is an illusion. Where we hear sound is an illusion. All color is the electromagnetic frequency. Is the frequency of electromagnetic radiation. That's all it is, you know, and it goes from gamma all the way down to radio waves and broadband and everything else like that. That's what, but we see a very narrow sliver. Our brains interpret these little narrow sliver and allows us to see color, which helps us navigate in the world. We think that there's something true about that when it isn't. That even the color that we see is an illusion. We know that scientifically for a fact. So this consciousness that we speak of, it's of the same ilk, the same kind. So yeah, choices are rather instead of it being something that we can actually look at and choose to do or something like that. No, we're compelled to do whatever we're going to do, and then this mechanism that we have to help us navigate in the world convinces us that we made a choice after the fact. This is what has been essentially verified in a lab through neuroscience. That's just what the evidence is. And if it was some other way, that'd be great. I would love it to be some other way, but that doesn't seem to be the case. In order for you to claim that your worldview is correct, you will have to demonstrate that your worldview is correct. You have to prove that God exists. You have to prove that he actually spoke those words to the writers of the Bible and that what they're saying is true. You made a number of claims where you said that, oh yeah, in the Bible they always said that the earth was round. No, they didn't. Because if they did, then we wouldn't have needed Galileo and Copernicus and everyone else like that to explain things after the fact. Everyone would have knew it since the Bible was written. Oh yeah, of course there's entropy and everything else like that. They knew that.
You want to just start wrapping it up there?
Right.
I apologize.
Yeah, they didn't know.
Just start wrapping it
up. No, I understand. I'm sorry. Yeah, they didn't know that. That's why we had to discover it. No, I got you. I'm gonna wrap up. But so let me just say that the statements that I made aren't prescription, rather they are predictions, and they can be scientifically tested. and we can see how it turns out. Ultimately, we need to stop this us versus them if we want to continue on to the future and have the best Earth that we can have. You know, the best society that we can have on Earth. That's it.
Awesome. I appreciate it. I apologize for interrupting you. I know we could probably.
That's all right. I'm sorry.
discuss
I get a
these
little long with it.
issues
I'm
and
sorry.
No, that's okay. Hey, listen. No worries. You're passionate. So many good topics. I know we could probably have a 10-hour debate easily. So what we'll do is we're now at about 2-hour mark. I want to thank everybody in the chat. We've had a good audience, good questions. Thanks for the super chats. And gentlemen, thanks for the good debate, because if it wasn't for you guys being generous enough with your time, we wouldn't have a debate tonight. So I believe Matt Slick is having an after show. So make sure you check his Facebook page, Carm, I believe, right? Matt,
right.
Carm.org.
And
And
put the links up there.
Go.
Yeah. All right. Well, thanks,
Okay.
brother. Appreciate it. Thanks,
Well,
Derek.
thank you so much, gentlemen. All right, guys.
All right. Watch you later.
And we'll shut it down. SFT is out. God bless everyone.